one of the most underrated, undervalued, underutilized pieces of information that we have access to is, okay, and so today we're going to talk about books inspired by an episode on MoneyWise, which is Sam Farr's podcast, where he interviews usually like high net worth individuals. And Anne Mahlum was on this particular episode that I was listening to, and you should definitely listen to the full episode. A powerhouse, very inspiring woman, super confident, just makes moves. So I'll give you the backstory so that you will value this quote from her a little bit more, because at first, like if I just tell you the quote, you might be like, who's this lady? You might take it a little bit more seriously if I tell you who she is. So Anne was the founder, CEO of Solid Core, which you may not have heard of, but it is a Pilates studio fitness business that she grew from zero and scaled it to an exit of over $100 million. So she's pretty successful, but she talks in this episode about how she didn't know anything about money. She didn't know about investing. She had no clue. But what she did was read books. And by reading books, she figured it out, right? And that we have access to these tools. And so many of us take those tools, books, for granted. Books, podcasts, YouTube, things that really can help us grow and become better. And so I want to share some of my favorite books with you. But before that, I want to share the quote that stopped me in my tracks when I was listening to Anne's interview on this podcast. She says, if you aren't willing to invest any time with podcasts or reading into learning, then you deserve to be broke. Mic drop, Anne. Mic drop, because it's not that much money. It's like $15 to have access to the best minds in the business space, in the money space, in the health space, in the personal development space. So let's read more, and not just read. Okay. This is a big one for me, because when I read a book, I don't just read a book. Sometimes I just read a book, but if it's a book that I really want to master, right? I don't just want the knowledge. Like sometimes you just read a book because you're like, oh, great. That helped me. Sometimes there's a book that like hits you and you're like, I want to master that. Like that's the result that I want. Like that's the life that I want. That's the business that I want. This is what I need to do. And then you just move on, and you got to stop doing that. You got to actually implement the book. So one time when I was first starting my business, this was about 10 or 11 years ago, I was still in my corporate job and I had found this book, and I read this book about 7 or 8 times, because I was like, I'm not just going to read this book once, because this book had like implementation tips. There was things that I needed to do, right? So I read the book, and then I read it again, and then I read it again, and then I read it again, and I kept implementing. I kept doing the things that I needed to do. I would listen to it on audiobook, because a lot of my job at the time, I had to drive around, and so I had time. I listened to podcasts. Like back in the day, I was listening to Amy Porterfield. I was listening to Chalene Johnson. I was listening to Internet Business Mastery with one of my good friends, Jason Van Orden. I was listening to anything I could, audiobooks, but I didn't just listen once and then move on. I picked something that I was like, no, this is the result that I want. I'm going to master this. And I read it again and again and again. And I want to encourage you, books can be such a powerful tool, but you have to actually use them and implement them. And so I wanted to share a few of my favorite books. And then I also have a list of like my 12 favorite for small business owners or entrepreneurs. But I'm going to give you a few today so that you can get started. And then if you want the list, let me know, comment list below, and I'll link you out to the Google Doc with my full list, or I'll just put it in the comments, whatever. So one of my favorite books, Essentialism by Greg McKeown. No one knows, okay? The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. When I first read this book, this was like a book that I was like, dang, I should have wrote that book. That's how much this book was like, yes, yes, yes. Those are all the things I think. Those are all the things I believe. Like that is it. Okay. So my background is in operational efficiency, Lean Six Sigma. Everything is about doing less to get better results. Essentialism. Okay. This will help you like remove things off your plate, be like laser focused on only the things that actually matter. The power of doing less, but doing it better. Okay. Do less, but better. That's like the recap for this book. And you must read it. It's a must. Can't go without this one. Clockwork. This is our book. Myself, Mike Michalowicz. All about how to design your business to run itself. Okay, step-by-step system for entrepreneurs to remove themselves as the bottleneck to the business. The whole premise inside of the book is getting you as the small business owner to the point where you could take a 4-week unplugged vacation. Okay, so we help you develop your systems, your team, your leadership so that you can step away and the business keeps running. Clockwork. Okay. I thought about saving this one for last, but I think I'm going to do 3 more. Okay. This is one of my favorite books that no one's ever heard of. And I hope that I have done more justice for this book than anyone else, okay? Because it's one of my favorite books in general, but specifically for those of you who are thinking about small business, efficiency, even big business. It's called The 5-Hour Workday by Stephen Aarstol. As you can see, it's well loved with my Post-its, with my coffee stains over the years. I don't even remember how I got or found this book, but it's incredible for those of you who want to really embrace the efficiency, the essentialism, the working less lifestyle for not just you personally, but also for your team and for your entire business, okay? So this book really talks about the idea of like where we even got the 12-hour workday and how we're actually not built for a 8-hour workday with the work that we do now. So it talks about the economies, it talks about industrial revolution, how we got here, it talks about the digital age, and how to actually get to a point where you can have 5-hour workdays and why that's actually going to be more efficient for your organization. So highly recommend. Deep Work by Newport. Okay, if you haven't read this book, you need to, especially if you are scattered, not spending enough time on like the big picture, the vision, the super valuable work that really makes a big difference in your business, but you're not making time for it or you're not able to get into a space like a flow state. You need to understand deep work. This is all like really related in Clockwork. We talk about this idea of design time, like how do you get into design time more easily, more quickly in a distracted world? Deep Work by Newport. And last but not least, one of my faves, just for life in general, Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is all about building good habits, really micro habits, tiny changes that are going to make a huge difference in your life. And I think this book sets you up for success in so many other areas of your life, because if you're having trouble making changes or getting the results that you want, it's probably related to the micro habits that you have. And Atomic Habits is just classic read that you need to prioritize. So again, if you aren't willing to invest money or time into reading books or listening to podcasts that help you learn about the thing you want to learn about, you deserve to be bad at it. You deserve to be broke. You deserve to have a small business or a non-successful business, or you deserve whatever you got, right? Because there are tools out there to help you get better, to help you get even more results, and books can help you do that. If you want the full list of my 12, I'll link it below. Hope this was helpful for you. Let me know which book you're going to read first on my list of these 5. Clockwork, always a fan favorite, but